Hey everyone, welcome back. We're so happy to have you. We're so glad that you're joining us. I am with my beautiful co-host, Lynda. How you doing, Lynda?
Well, after that introduction, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. We also have our guest, Lynn Monet. She was with us last week. Lynn is going to be off camera, but we're going to be able to hear her voice. So, but how you doing, Lynn? We're so happy to have you back.
Oh, I'm so glad that you invited me. I had such a great time last time, and I was really looking forward to this tonight. And I'm sorry I'm the talking head, everybody, but I am here. Still a little bit in the war zone of North and South Carolina. So I wanted to make sure that, I didn't keep disappearing on you. So
yeah, no worries. And sometimes what happens too is it can actually slow down the feed too. So then we would just be sitting here trying to have a conversation that was like stalling all the time. So this is fine. No worries. I mean, here's the thing, Lynn. We're probably going to at some point have you back again if you would have us.
I'm actually regular once a month on a lot of shows. So yeah, no, I would love to. It's absolutely fine. We just have to work it out. And then the nice part is that you're not on a weekend, so I have more availability.
Yeah, well, it's a Sunday, which is, but it's not like a Friday night or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So
last time, during the week, you actually sent me a picture, and we had talked about the wee man when we were with you last week. Do you want to just kind of go over the story again, just so people know what we're talking about if they're first time joining us tonight?
Absolutely. As I mentioned before in the previous show, we kind of did a couple of snippets of a couple of things that I'm and have experienced and writing books about or have already written books about. And as I'd mentioned that I was raised in a haunted house. I then purchased the haunted house as a single mother of two children that are now grown, and both Austin and Brittany are my children's names in the book. I had a third baby since then at 46, so I've got a 15-year-old at home. And then I had to then
I have to tell you this, Lynn. So it's really funny. I just have to interrupt for a second because our life, it's funny, like our lives are very parallel in that way. One of the things that happened with me is that with my two kids, my daughters, we actually were in a very haunted house. We were actually living there for quite a while, and we moved to another place, and I actually had my son at close to 40, and he's 19 now.
Oh, wow. Well,
yeah.
I think those last late life babies are the easiest ones. I don't know about you, but mine 100%. Sure were. So yeah, I would do it again. For anybody that hasn't had children yet, yeah, you can still have healthy babies in your 40s. The doctors just flip out a little bit, but you'll be fine. So, well, that's wonderful. But my youngest daughter had to live through the second house. I currently have a book that's supposed to be coming out around Halloween. It is my Omnipresent book series that's going to end up being a series of 5 books. The first one is Omnipresent. That was about a house that I purchased that was so haunted I never moved in. Then there was Omnipresent, What Happened Next, which was about what happened afterwards and how I got a hold of the people that I bought the house from. And also I did a stint, I did a rotation when I went back to school later in life to further my degree in nursing, and ended up in a psychiatric ward as a nurse, not a patient. And I was seeing attachments on people with addiction, some with schizophrenia, as well as seeing some of the things that other people were seeing, that other patients were seeing there that were empaths that were being mistaken as hallucinations by the staff. So, of course, I kept my mouth shut because I didn't want to be admitted. But the third book in the Omnipresent series is called 111 Becca Dawn Drive. It is coming out, as I said, around Halloween. And this particular story, I had gone through a divorce and I was rushing to find a place to move to that I could afford. And I found this townhouse that was supposedly just refurbished and, that was remodeled, and not refurbished, but remodeled. And it was, the price range was decent. So I called them up and I did, now they have all those virtual walkthrough things. I did the virtual walkthrough thing and drove past the townhouse, and the neighborhood was in a nice neighborhood. It appeared to be a nice, clean building. And so I called the manager and I asked if I could see the townhouse. And I was also afraid at the price that it was, that somebody else would jump on it and get it before me. So I came with my deposit and first month's rent in hand, ready to sign the lease that day that I actually did the first walkthrough. Well, normally when I would go into a place after going through multiple episodes of haunted houses and also helping people deal with their own haunted houses, I normally go in with my feelers on, and I didn't get a chance to do that in this one. I was in and out in 10 minutes. And I said to the lady, I looked around and I noticed, can you hear me okay still?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
I noticed that the refrigerator had not been cleaned, and that the stove, that the inside of the oven hadn't been cleaned, and the toilet upstairs still had like chemicals and stuff on it. And I don't know if I talked about this part last week or not, but I'm going to kind of touch on that again because it's a key piece. So I made mention of that, and I said, well, everything looks nice. It's got new carpet. The flooring is updated. It's got nice French doors that open into a grassed area so I can let my dogs out there. And, I mentioned, I said, but, it doesn't look like they've cleaned it since the people moved out. And the lady assured me that they would clean it. And so I went to sign the lease, and I even made a comment to her. I said, if this place turns out to be haunted, will I be able to get out of this lease and get my money back? Kind of looked at me funny, and I said, no, you don't understand. I have purchased a house and grew up in a house that was haunted, and I surely don't want to, have to deal with that in this one. And we both got a chuckle out of it. And she says, oh, of course. Well, of course, she didn't work there very long. And so when I did have to come back, she was long gone. So anyway, I signed the papers. I was told, that was on a Friday. I was told to come to the office that Monday and get the keys, that they would call me in the morning to let me know. I had already sent my application in and I knew I was already approved, but they would give me the keys, and that would give them the weekend to have the maid come and finish cleaning up the townhouse. So that Monday, I went over with the keys, with my van packed full of boxes of clothes and shoes and things to take over to the townhouse and start unloading. And I took them into the house, and I noticed where the kitchen everything was still dirty, and so was the bathroom upstairs. So I called the management company and I said, this is supposed to be move-in ready, and it's not. I said, I pointed these things out to the person that was here that I signed the agreement with, and nothing has changed. Did the maid not come and clean? Because if she did, you need to send her again. She missed some spots. And I told them, I said, at this point, I can't even move in here until this is done, because I'm not sitting on that toilet, and I'm not going to shower and have my kid take a bath in that tub. You all need to make sure that this is the way that it's supposed to be. So they were apologetic, said that they would have the maid come the next day, finish the cleaning. So I went ahead and went upstairs and started hanging my clothes in the closet. I couldn't put away dishes because the shelves weren't clean. I couldn't put away toiletries because the bathroom was nasty, but I could put away my clothes. I could hang up my clothes. So as I'm standing at the closet, hanging up my clothes, I see out of my peripheral vision this little girl standing there in the doorway, just kind of curiously watching. She had on this white dress almost to her ankles with those little shoes that had the buttons on the sides, like those old time buttons, long brown hair. She had her hair pulled back with a big, big bow. The bow was actually oversized for her head because she was probably about 5 or 6 years old, and those big, big bows. And I looked over and I said, well, hi there. And I noticed that she looked over her shoulder, got a frightened look over her face, and she took off. And I thought, oh, okay, well, we've got a ghost in the house, but, a little girl shouldn't be a problem. I can take care of that. It's not a big deal. But then I was in the kitchen stacking the boxes that I had brought unloaded onto the countertops to get them up out of the way off the floor so that when I left to go back and get another load, they wouldn't be in my way. And I started hearing this mumbling. And I thought that it was somebody outside on their cell phone because the kitchen window faced the parking lot of this townhouse. And so I left and I headed home. I got another load. Again, the maid then calls me on the phone. I'm on my way back with another load of boxes. And I thought she was calling to make arrangements with me to come and clean the house. And she told me, she said, I know this is going to sound crazy, but do not move in to that town. And my heart drops and I'm like, why? And she said, I know this is going to sound crazy, but that place is haunted. She said, that whole building is haunted. She said, but your apartment has a portal in it and the one next door to, and they're the worst. And I said, oh my God. I said, is it the little girl? Because I've seen the little girl. And the lady said to me, there is a little girl, but the little girl's not the one that you have to worry about. She said, it's the tall, dark-haired, slender man with the black eyes that mumbles in the bathroom and kitchen. And I'm like, oh my God, I heard him mumbling, but I assumed, that it was coming from the parking lot. And I said to her, are you sure? And here I'm sitting there. I had to pull off the road because I'm like, you've got to be joking. I have signed the lease to the townhouse. I've got 10 days to exit and clean the place that I'm leaving, and I have nowhere else to go. There's no way for me to buy more time to find another place, and I've already started moving into this one. So I couldn't believe it. So I figured, I'll have to try to clear the house and see what I can do with it. I'll call on some people that I know to help me. And the lady said to me, she said, is there any way, that you could get someone else to come and clean the house and I will pay for it? So I called the maid service. I had another cleaning lady come, and sure enough, that maid came and left. She came and left me with the money. She met me outside of my townhouse, just like she said she would, to pay the lady that I actually had clean. And I asked her, I said, well, I think that we've cleared the house because we did a little blessing on it. And I said, do you want to come in and see? And she walks in and she says, nope. She says, that's there. And you could literally see the energetic wavering in that corner during certain times. So I took a head of Mother Mary holding Jesus and stuck it in that corner and figured, I'd at least try to do something to put something positive, religious wise, to kind of block that there. But it just so happened that then the house was cleaned. We ended up having to move in. And I would lay in bed at night, and all of a sudden I would hear this hard tapping on my nightstand next to my head. It would go tap. And I would pretend like I was sleeping, because at first I wasn't sure if it was maybe water dripping off of the gutter spout or something, outside. It was a place that was new to me. So I would ignore it. Then all of a sudden I'd start to feel my covers just ever so softly start to pull down. And I'm like, what the hell? Is the dog on the bed moving? So I grabbed him and I pulled them back up. Then I hear that on the nightstand again. And I ignore it again. And then I start to feel the covers come back down. And I sat up fast and I said, you need to get the F-bomb out of my room. I'm like, I don't know who you are or who you think you are, but you need to get out of my room. You picked the wrong house to come into. If I want somebody here to pull, I'll invite them in. You're not invited. You need to get the F out of my house. So my son, who wasn't supposed to move with us, his plans fell through with his friend. So he ended up moving in with us too. And the thing was, my daughter, after about 2 nights, refused to sleep in that room, her bedroom, because she said that there was somebody in her closet playing with her toys and that would fluff her hair while she was trying to sleep. And it frightened her because, she was like maybe in 2nd or 3rd grade. So she was still pretty little. And so she ended up sleeping in my room with me. And my son then moved in and ended up taking her room, which of course the little girl would come in the room nightly. She would start turning on the toys. The lights would light up. The toys would start talking and she would start fluffing his hair too. So I spoke to my life partner, Bill, and had him come and help me clear the house again. But the problem is that we were finding is that the spirits, while we were actively clearing the house, would step next door on either side. And when we were finished clearing, they would come right back in. They wouldn't show up immediately. They would be a little cautious about coming back in, but then eventually they would come back in. And I'd be like, they're back, they're back type thing. So we ended up clearing it a couple of times and kept having this problem until we finally had to find a way to clear the house completely and to put up like a spiritual energetic force field from corner to corner of the house with salt and with a stone embedded in salt, which you put in the farthest corner of each corner. Then you also, of course, salt your windowsills and your doors. But people, if you do this, you need to make sure that your spirits are out. If you try this, but don't, you'll be locking them in with you. And so, they can do things, but you have to do something energetically to block them from returning in there or coming through the roof if you're on the first floor, coming through the door if you're on the second floor. And that's what we finally ended up doing. But the thing is that I was out in the backyard one night and it was like 1-2 o'clock in the morning. And this lady's out there on her phone. And the way that our houses were set up is that they had patios that 2 townhouses shared. And she was a third patio over from me. So it skipped a couple of townhouses. And she's mumbling on the phone, and I overhear her saying, I'm going to get my things and I'm going to come now. And she was very upset. And I said to her, she got off, she said, my neighbor's out here, I've got to get off the phone. And I said to her, is everything okay? And she looked at me and she said, would you mind standing here while I go into my house and get my purse? I mean, she was shaking. And I said, and I just come right out. I'm like, is your house haunted too? And she looked at me and her eyes got big and she started to cry. And she said, yes. She said, there's things going on in my house that I can't explain. We've just recently moved in. My boyfriend's out of town and I need to go into the house and get my purse and my keys. She was going to drive 2.5 hours away to go to her parents' house to stay with them until the boyfriend came back. Mm-hmm. And so I agreed. I went in with her and I stood there while she got her purse and her keys. And I mean, she couldn't get out of there fast enough. And then I went back into mine and I kind of spoke to her briefly and told her, I said, well, if you need any, I have, dragon's blood to bless your house with and certain things that you might be able to use to neutralize some of the negativity or kind of ward off, some of the things to not have them bother you. And lo and behold, when her boyfriend got back, about 3 weeks later, he literally comes knocking on my door and there she stands behind him wrapped in a towel with shampoo in her head. You've got to come. He's back, type thing. And so these kinds of things continued to happen. The word got out. I was talking to the people that lived in the very first one that wasn't connected to anything except for on one side. And they were walking through the backyards looking for their cat. They had a cat that was an indoor cat. The cat got out. So they were leaving food out for it and calling for it. And I stepped out and they're like, have you seen, this cat? They showed me a picture of it. And I'm like, no. And I'm like, what is the deal with these apartment buildings that people, everybody that I've talked to, they're either breaking their lease and moving out or they're new people that have just moved in that aren't happy. I said, what's going on with this place? And the lady said, I don't know.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. Sorry. That was just me. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So she said, I don't know, but since we've lived here for a year, she says it has literally changed management companies 6 times. She says, this is the 6th management company that we've had. And that one was currently changing. I mean, literally within my speaking to her, changed again to somebody else a week later. So it just kept handing over. And I said to her, I said, okay, well, things are happening in my house. And the 2 girls, one looked at the other and she said, see, I told you. She said, I told you. And I started to talk about what was happening. And again, to her friend, she said, see, I told you. I told you that the place was haunted. Then they started to tell me about how when they crawled underneath the building to look to see if maybe their cat had gotten under there, that there were hundreds of dead cat carcasses underneath the building.
Oh, God.
Yes. So I'm like, you've got to be joking. I said, well, that explains the smell that comes up through the heating vents. You know, not so much the air conditioning, but when it heats up and it gets warm, you know, it's kind of stinks like dead body. Like that smell that if you've ever been outside and there's been a dead baby bird or mouse or something on the ground and it has that sweet, stinky smell. It's that rotting smell of dead body. And I said, you know, I thought maybe there was a dead mouse in the air conditioning vent or the heating vent or something, because I kept smelling that smell, you know, coming up through the floor. So we started talking, and the one girl was telling me, she says, yeah, she says, I sometimes go down and sleep in the living room because whatever it is, it messes with my curtains. It taps on my nightstand. I said, yep, I've heard that too, type thing. And they were actually 1 month to moving out. They were finishing up their last month there. And after they decided not to renew their lease, they wanted to get out. So the thing is that also while I was living there, the people if you were to stand facing the door, the people on the right side of me had church service in their townhouse, and the walls were so paper thin that you could hear every word they said when they walked in their front door. And when the church meeting would get going and they were singing gospel and literally stuff was falling off of the walls, I thought, well, this is great. You know, I can't imagine these spirits, you know, wanting to hang out, you know, to hear all of that sort of thing. So I kind of felt comforted by that, you know. So, but then I ended up meeting with them outside, and I mentioned to the lady, I said, you know, what is the deal with this place? I said, is there so much management turning over? Why are so many people leaving and turning over? And she said, I don't know. She said, but I know that somebody hit our trailer out here. They did nothing about it. We've been calling. We've had standing water in our bathtub for almost 2 weeks and can't use the bathtub or shower. She said for them to come and fix it. And so there were all of these issues and problems, and the companies just kept handing one off to the other. And so as time went on, there were 10 townhouses that were side by side. And I overhear this one lady. I'm outside, I'm in the front. And I had some weird things happening too at that time. I had some kind of a weirdo that was, I guess, had a thing to get even with me because I was having bowel movement smeared underneath my car handles. So when I'd open it, I'd get poop in my fingers, and somebody had taken urine and dumped it. I mean, literally dumped it all over my parking spaces, where I had 2 parking spaces that when you pulled in them, whether you got out of the back seats on either side or the front seats are on either side, you couldn't help but walk in it. And I don't know if they thought that I was somebody else and they were thinking, you know, they were getting even with somebody else that lived in the apartment. But it turned out to be this disgruntled lady, which is another story in itself, but we won't go there. But anyway, all of that, I mean, I was having pig's feet left on my doorsteps, and I mean, just weird voodoo stuff that was being done at that house. Kind of all of that negative draw that was part of that vortex and that open portal area. And it sounds crazy, but I'm telling you, it was a crazy time. So I ended up finding a way to basically block things from coming into the house, so that I could continue to live there. I did have a meeting. I had 7 of the people that were living there that were still living there, because like I said, they were moving and breaking their leases. And we were all talking outside with like lawn chairs in a circle. And everybody started talking about what was happening in their house. And it wasn't just happening to the women. There was a guy that lived directly next door to me. He and his boyfriend lived there. And he said that both of them, on multiple occasions, felt something groping their private parts while they were sleeping. And started to tell this story. One of the lady that lived next door, she spoke up and she said, you know, she says that there was one night that she and her husband were in bed, they were sleeping, and she thought it was her husband, felt somebody rolling over, snuggling up to her, getting a little romantic. And of course, she was kind of getting in the mood. But then when she rolled over, her husband was sound asleep snoring. You know, his snoring was on his side, and she kind of nudged him and got mad at him because, like, why were you, kissing all up on me and now you're rolled over sleeping? And he's like, what are you talking about? I've been asleep this whole time. I have no idea what you're talking about. So this ghost was actually crawling in bed between people, crawling in bed with people, pulling down people's covers, pulling down women's underwear. I had one woman that was in her car, and I was out in the parking lot, and I overhear her talking about how she had actually contacted a psychic. I can hear this through her window. She's got her window down. And that the psychic told her that the house was haunted. So, of course, my ears perk up. I wait for her to get off the phone, and I go over. And it turns out that she works for an escort service. So some of the behavior that she was doing was kind of also inviting them in that sense, too, because that will do it. And but she was talking about how, on several occasions in that townhouse that she would wake up and she would find her underpants all the way down around her ankles. Wow. I kid you not. And I'm like, then I told her about the tapping and the cover coming down, and, and all of these people, men and women both, were experiencing these things. I mean, there were episodes where my dog would literally sit at the top of the stairs and just growl and bark. And I actually sent a picture. I call him Weenie Man. The thing that's ironic about this ghost is that there was more than one ghost. He was an additional one. But he would go around basically swinging into everybody's bedrooms butt naked. But then when he had an opportunity to have a picture taken, he was bashful and decided to cover his Johnson. So that's
I'll show everybody the picture. So this is the first picture I'm going to put up here. Is you can see she just kind of made an outline. This is not a picture of the ghost, is not outlined. Okay, she doesn't see him as an outline. I just want to specify that because sometimes people don't get it. but you can. So what she did is she actually made an outline so that it's clearer for people to see, and you can see where he's trying to hide his little weenie. It's actually quite funny. And then I'll show you in the second one here.
Right. The outline is so that you know where to look in the second one, so that you know, and you'll be able to see him very clearly. And I took this with my camera. Do you see him?
Yeah. So you can see the outline, or you can see him in this picture here. I'm using my mouse as if you guys can see it. But if you look at the door, you can see the difference within the resolution of the picture. Like the pixels look different, and you can very clearly see there's an outline of a person. Can you see that, Lynda?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And you can see his hands over his Johnson.
Yeah. Yep. And obviously probably in person you might see him even a little bit more clear, I would assume, or no?
Yeah, well, yes, depending on where he would be standing. But the thing was, is he was sneaky about it. And even with myself, when something is up close to me, I see more of a waffling to the air, like an energetic waffling, than actual features. If I catch them at a distance or out of my peripheral vision, I can tell you every detail, including their eye color, if they're close enough. And I mean, I can see them as clearly as I can see you. But he was a little bit more evasive than that. I mean, he would come in the dark, in the pitch black, and he was sneaky about how he did it. And that's why he would tap on the side of the nightstand first in most of the cases, or people's windowsills, because he wanted to see how soundly they were sleeping, so that he could then continue to do his dastardly deeds. So that was the purpose of the tapping, I believe, that it was the tapping, because after he would tap, you could literally count to like 15, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then all of a sudden, just ever so slightly, you'd start to feel your covers coming down to the point that you weren't sure until they were down about 1.5 inches. You know what I'm saying? And then you're like, wait a minute, it's not the dog. It's not my daughter moving in the bed. Something's, because at first you question it, like, well, did something fall off the bed and make it move, or pull it down, or, did the cat walk across? You question it of things. But then when you finally realize that something's actually pulling them down, and you pull them back up, and then and then he's not done. Then he starts the tapping thing again to see if you've fallen back to sleep so that he
It's like, wake up. Are you awake? You awake? You there?
And he didn't really want you awake because he wanted to be able to, to grope you and do whatever crawl on you or crawl in with you or whatever he wanted to do, which he did quite a few people in that townhouse. And the thing was, he was coming through that portal area, and the next door neighbor, too, he was saying, yeah, I was laying there taking a nap, and all of a sudden he said, I felt somebody come in and start groping my private parts. He said, and I thought, his boyfriend had come. He thought that his boyfriend had come in, and he opened his eyes and there was nobody there. And he said he jumped up and it freaked him out so bad, that he ran down the stairs because he didn't know, because it was so real. This guy's been doing it for so long, and he also knows how to feed off the energy type things in order to be able to do more physical acts. So a lot of times too, him doing this, the shock value that would happen when people would wake up and they'd be scared or run down the stairs, that negativity, that fear, creating that lush, that chocolate, I call lush chocolate for them because they love it. That's what they use to energize themselves and do more physical acts. And that's why it's so important when you're in the presence of something like that, that you fake it until you make it. And you don't let them know that you're scared.
Yeah.
That the thing that I have found out in all of my years of doing paranormal things is there's one very, very simple thing that people can use to deter and neutralize, whether it's alien, Bigfoot, ghost, you name it, Mothman, anybody. The more frightened you are, the more they come for you because they're feeding off of that. But the more that you stand your ground and you radiate love at them, and I'm not saying that you love them, you radiate love at them like sonar from your heart chakra. Even if you say out loud, love, 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 it will shrivel them and disable them. And they end up darting out of the room like there's a bad stench. So, but it took me a long time to learn that. And learned it actually within the last 4 years after doing it the other way of going in with fire pans, trying to clear people's houses of ghosts and having to deal with hell dogs and other level demons, of which I don't do demons that are above my pay grade anymore. I'll only do them for family because of the repercussions that I have to deal with after the months. So I usually avoid doing that. I can do it, but I don't like doing it. But even with that being said, I've had so many times where I then have gone in to clear people's houses, and there are things in people's houses. And when I've gone into the most negative areas and sat down on the bed, and I just sit there and say, love, 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 love. And all of a sudden you see things just they look at each other and they dart out of the room, all on the way out. So it is, and so that's what I use, with most of that. I have a little bit of, a lot of times people, they go in for entertainment with these ghosts and things like that. And these are not trained monkeys, people. A lot of these ghosts that are not malevolent, that are maybe lost, are the ones that are haunting your houses because, they've just forgotten their way. They have an intelligence about them. And a lot of times, to me, I find it offensive when people go in with Blinky ball and say, here, touch Blinky. And the spirit obliges and touches Blinky. And then you hear him say, oh, did you see that? Did you get that on film? Here, can you touch Blinky again? They touch Blinky again. And then, oh, did you see that? Oh, here, touch Blinky one more time. And then they wonder why the spirit's screaming for them to get out. Instead of approaching them and saying, thank you for letting us into your home. If you would please touch Blinky so that we can communicate with you and we can ask you questions and you can communicate with us through this. But understand that we will, even with the flashlight, that if you're going to turn it on to answer yes, or leave it on to answer no. Before we go to the next question, if you've answered yes, we'll need you to turn off the flashlight before the next question so that we can be clear. And thank you. Thank you, because some of these people that are ghosts or wandering around have higher educations than some of the people in the room that are the hunters. You know what I'm saying? So, you've got to, and they're not trained monkeys. So people need to, I'm really, really glad to see where the paranormal is finally starting to take a shift in the sense where they are entering homes with more respect for the people's property and not going in, scratch me, come on.
I think that for the most part, I think most teams, to be honest, like most of the teams that I've interacted with, which is, I was part of TAPS, I've been a part of the Warren Foundation, done thousands of investigations. So is Lynda. Lynda's been doing this for a long, long time. I don't feel like that's such a common thing, particularly so much anymore. The whole, screaming at them. There are some very inexperienced teams that do absolutely do that. But for the most part, I believe that, besides the TV shows, most teams, not all, not all, but most teams, treat the dead with respect, the same respect that they're, well, hopefully even better respect that they're, giving to the living. And it's mostly a theatrical thing now. There's a lot of inexperienced ones that, they watch, we know Mr. Bagans there. That think that this is the way to react to things. But I think most people with common sense know that this is just not cool. When you were talking about, being able to stand up for yourself, we've had a lot of parents, I know with our team, where the parents might feel like something is bothering their children in their room or whatever. And I said, well, why are you letting it? Well, we're scared of it. And I said, well, what would you do if a stranger went into your child's room? Would you just stand there and go, oh, okay, have fun, see ya, okay, bye? No, you're not going to do that. You're going to be like, get the fuck out of my kid's room. This is not acceptable. You are not welcome here. Get the hell out. And I actually had to do that with my son, and which is a whole nother story, but I had to do that with my son when he, with my son's room when he was 1.5, and because he was interacting with something that he called the guy back then. And he, like I said, he was only about 1.5 years, but I had to do that. I went into his room and, he was pointing in the corner, and I just went, get the hell out of my kid's room right now. And I watched as my kid watched this thing with his head. He watched, his head turned as he watched it walk out of his room. And it was the most bizarre thing, but that's what you have to do. But there's a difference. And I think that people need to know this, that there's a difference between threatening these things and standing up for yourself. And when you stand up for yourself and you say, no, you're not allowed to touch me, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to be in my room, is different than, if you don't stop doing this, I'm going to blah, 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 and I'm going to kick your butt. Like, what are you going to kick, buddy? Because this thing, it can do you some massive harm and you can't see it. So good luck with that.
Yeah, right? I'm really, really glad that you brought that up too. And like I said, also, I agree with you. Times have changed, and now, people are starting to be more respectful, although there are, like you said, there are still those few. But I'm so glad that you brought up your son, because in the back of my first book, I talk about this thing with children. So many times a child will come to their parents' room and say, there's something in my closet, or there's something under my bed. And the parents are like, oh, there's nothing there. Just go back to bed. Or they talk about the lady that's standing at the foot of their bed, and the parents will discard it and say, oh, well, that's probably just your guardian angel or your Aunt Lulu. Well, if it was their guardian angel or their Aunt Lulu, it wouldn't be standing at the foot of their bed shaking it, scaring the bejesus out of them in the middle of the night. So it's so important for parents, if their children do come to them consistently with more than once with a complaint of a spirit, showing, and usually it's the same complaint, oh, they're at the foot of my bed, or they're creaking the door in my closet, to ask the child, is it asking you to do anything that you know that you're not supposed to do and is
Mm-hmm.
making you uncomfortable and scared. And if the answer is yes to either or both of those, then it's not Aunt Lulu. And you have to help your child at an early age learn skills to protect themselves, because not only do we have things at large that we have to be careful of, but there is this constant spiritual realm that parallels our lifetimes, that overlaps into our realms, and children are even more sensitive to it because their filters are not fully in place, especially the younger ones. So it is important to let them know if something is scaring you, you have a special prayer that they can state out loud, or a song that they can sing that that would may make the thing move away, or just flat out tell it, no, you're not allowed in my room and get out.
Yeah.
You know, I'll go get my mom. You need to get out of my room right now. But the parent needs to come. I mean, so many times I've heard of people, the kids saying, Mom, there's a man standing in the kitchen, and the mom's so scared. She's like, no, there's nothing there. And she ushers the kid out, but the kid can plainly see it standing there. So just because you don't see it doesn't mean that it's not there. And it doesn't mean your kid has schizophrenia either. It might just mean that they're an empath. That's why I say, when you ask your child, if they come to you with something more than once, and it's the similar kind of thing, like the woman standing at the foot of their bed, it's not, oh, you've had a horse in your bed this last night, and you had an eagle in your car riding to school the next day, and then you had a man at the swing. I mean, all of these different things, and they're all talking to you at the same time. That's a little different. But if it's consistent, because a lot of these spirits, they have patterns of things that they're circles that they go through in their lifetimes, that they continue in their period of a spiritual time, where, like, if they used to go to an area of the house where they had a pump for water and a well with a bucket, you'll see them making that route over and standing there pumping like there's water there, even though it's a living room now. So they have these habits that they continue to do. So if the child does say that it is something that's happened more than once, then you need to believe your child and not discredit them and say, oh no, there's nothing there.
A lot of times too, it could be a residual haunting that the child in that case is just seeing the visual image of, which a lot of people can't see, especially once they get to a certain place or a certain belief or a certain, place within their own mind or their own reality, that they're just not seeing these anymore. But a lot of these things, especially if they're not interacting, are going to be just a residual energy that the child might be seeing or very much hearing, especially if it's at the same time or same day or certain times throughout the week or whatever it is, right? But what were you going to say, Linda?
No, I'm saying you're right. That's exactly right. But it's also important to empower them during these times, to give them something to protect themselves, something to empower that they can say to defend themselves, so that they don't, become so afraid of it. That, so many people are so afraid of spirits. I know in the medical field, when elderly people are getting ready to pass and they start talking about loved ones that are in the room, the family gets creeped out because they've learned to be afraid of it. Also, if people are having issues with mental illness and they're seeing things or hearing voices and things, again, the medical field, they run with medication because they're hallucinating again, and maybe they're not. You know what I'm saying? Maybe they really are seeing something. And a lot of times even the medication doesn't take it away if they are seeing something, because it's not, a hallucination. Their parent might actually be standing there, or their husband, or somebody having tea with them at a table. Just other people can see it and other people can't. And a lot of times they choose not to see it out of fear because they're afraid of it. So
True. But Lynn, I wanted to mention one thing. When Kathy was talking about the fact that, there are paranormal groups out there that do have a lot of integrity, that approach it with a lot of love and respect. There are clients that we paranormal teams have that, they don't want the ghosts to leave. They want some sort of evidence. And if you can get evidence for them, that's great and fine. But then once you leave and you explain to them, that someone in the home is probably a very sensitive person, or they're living in an area where, there are a lot of paranormal things that have occurred, that other people have experienced the same thing. So they're more likely to experience these things. They are not satisfied with that. They'll call multiple paranormal teams over. Yeah. And it's like they want to keep the ghosts and entities in their home as pets. And that's a problem, I think, that a lot of teams have, because we always say to each other, how do we stop this loop from happening?
Mm-hmm. Wow. That is so true. I've run across that myself. I make it very clear to people that, well, first of all, if you really want your house cleared and taken care of, you do need to have a clean house, because they're attracted to clutter. But that's just another sideline. But I agree with you on that. But I make it very clear to them, even if it is something that is not bothering them, on another level, it is bothering them because it disturbs their sleep. They may not realize that they're not going fully into REM sleep. It will disturb their sleep. And when their sleep is disturbed long enough, then they go into other health issues that we all, depression, weight gain, all kinds of stuff like that then start a snowball effect, making the person even left, sick. And it's not, these souls are dead. It's one thing if your mother has crossed over and she comes back to visit you. That is a very warm, loving, wonderful visit. There's nothing being drained from you, but it's when a ghost has chosen not to cross over at the time of death, that they are still here in spirit without a body, that they have this negative pull, even though they don't mean to, that feeds off of your energy. And a lot of times is why you feel so tired, type thing. And people don't realize it. You're right. These are not pets. And no, it's not okay to leave them in your house. Really, they need to be sent on their way, crossed over if they want to, because a lot of them still don't want to be crossed over. Sometimes, depending, some of them are lost and they're grateful to be crossed over. But they need to understand that they can't stay there and feed off of you.
Right.
And also that they draw other things in. Them being there, they draw other things in that may not be so nice. So, they need to understand, that could very well happen. But I totally agree with you. I've also run across that. And I'm kind of like, and you've got kids in the house. It would be different if they were adults by themselves. But when you've got kids in the house too, man, I don't know,
Yeah, it's hard.
A lot of them, though, a lot of these spirits do come in as children, and they can be very very tricking, and especially for adults that, there might be maybe a mother in the house, or, somebody with a kind nature, and they always make that mistake. Well, you can stay as long as you don't blah, 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 blah. And so now they've just given permission to this thing to hang out and do whatever it wants, essentially, right? Without actually knowing what this is, but it's going to present itself as this child, or, and it's funny.
And it's not a child.
I've been doing this a long time, and I truly have not run across child ghosts. I know that some people have, and that I'm not saying that they're not out there, that they don't exist. But for me personally, any place that I've gone into that is involving a haunting has not been an actual child. And you can tell the difference very quickly. And it's the way that they react with you. And they'll see me come, and I see them, and we're like this. And you can see that look on their face. And they're like, okay, now what do I do? Because now they've got to figure out a different way, in order to interact, but more interact with me, not so much the homeowners. Right. Exactly. So it's an interesting dynamic.
It is. And the gig is up when you make that. And that's why even in that townhouse with that little girl, I'm like, okay, it seems harmless. It's something that I can get out, but the whole thing turned into be something much more than that. And
right. And it doesn't mean that she's bad. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. It doesn't mean that she's bad, but what she might be attached to or bringing through with her could
bad.
have very negative, intentions.
Exactly. And it was, and he was a black, he had black eyes. It was Terry. He was the mumbling man that was, I believe, called demise in this lifetime. But the thing is no, I totally agree with you, on that a lot of times things will pose. And you know what I found recently is that a lot of times, even, I mean, and this is way off because I've got a book that I'm writing right now for the Omnipresent series called Gnome Place Like Home, where I found fae. Sometimes these fae, they walk around, they're under 3 feet tall, and they can be mistaken for ghosts, and they're not. You know what I'm saying? And they can be nasty little beasties. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sorry, people, if you got one of those living in your house, you need to move or make nice because they're not leaving. So they've been there since before they were created at the time that the earth was created, and they're not leaving. So they're not demonic in that sense, but they can be very nasty. And they can also be very, very sweet and nice too, depending. But a lot of times I personally made a mistake assuming that one was a child in this house that I inherited from my sister, and turns out that he was not a child, that it was a fae. And actually, I went to the Gettysburg Bash in Pennsylvania, and I had 2 people approach me and say, "You've got a little boy with you." Well, it wasn't a little boy; it was a little fae. And then another man came and approached me. Brian Bowden approached, and he said, "Bob's here." And he's sitting in that chair, and he was sitting there, and his little feet were going back and forth like windshield wipers. And he was just very happy to be where he was. He thought that he's watching all of the things go on with humans. So, but that's because that particular fae has softened over time with some of the things that, some of the agreements that we've come to. But anyway, but they can be mistaken as children too, just because of their size. And they're not always children or spirits that we normally run across. So I'm just saying. That
Definitely. So if I just wanted, before we end the show, I just wanted to ask you, now I've put all of your links in the description box and everything, but is there a way for people to contact you? What's the best way? Or if they do want to talk to you, what kind of business do you do? Or do you help people with some of their issues? Or
I do. I'm an international author, so I do write the books, and a lot of my books all of them have self-help sections in the back, depending on what you're looking for. But I also help take off attachments. I do help clear houses. I'm in the process of taking the Mace Energy classes, so I'll be able to help remove stamps off of people.
Nice.
Attachments on the outside, but I'll be able to remove attachments from the inside of stamps that we've even gotten in utero. And usually it only takes 1 session, sometimes a little bit more, but you don't have to. The nice part about it is that you don't have to go through your life history of counseling. You just go straight in and take it out. So I'll be finishing that here in about another 4 months, and I'll be offering those sessions to people. And I offer each of you ladies for free if you want one.
You're so sweet.
Because I need people to work on and get practice in. But I'm going to tell you, I've had it done on me, and it works. It works.
Oh, I would love to have something like that. Yeah, 100%.
Stress and a lot of that. And like I said, I'll come find you as soon as I finish, because I'm going to have probably about 70 people that I do for free. And if you want to be on that list, I'll be happy to do it. But yes, you can find me on www.lynnmonet.com. That's www.lynnmonet.com. And I have an email there that you can reach me through. And I apologize, I am running behind on my emails at this time by about 2 weeks. So please be patient. I will get to you. I am answering my emails myself. So it will be me responding to you. And I do help people. However, I want to make it clear, I don't do demons. So if you have been told that you have a demon problem, you need to call somebody else, because like I said, I can do them, but I only do them for family and very, very close friends. If there's an issue that way, I've had to draw that boundary. So please respect that boundary, because I still have a lot of people that are contacting.
I just wanted to add to that, if there is anyone that is dealing, or they believe that they are dealing with a demonic type attachment, you can contact the Warren Foundation. This is something that they do specialize in, and they have a lot of experience in that. And you don't want to use a regular or a typical or whatever paranormal investigator. You don't want to use someone like Lynn either, because that's not what she specializes in. And as she said, you know, we need to respect the boundaries of those people that do have these gifts, because when we start disrespecting and going outside of those barriers that we ourselves have put around us, it's very violating, even for somebody to come and say, hey, can you just do this? Can you just do this quick? And we have to deal with that. And it puts us in a place of like, I just don't want to deal with you. I don't want to deal with you. Right.
No, absolutely. And the thing is too, is people also have to realize that when they do come, there's just not a magical fix, because there are certain things that you also have to do in order to make those changes. Like, for instance, if you're somebody that is you have an addiction problem, and you've got porno all over your house, well, and you want the demons taken out of your house, but they're your fan club, they're watching the porno with you, so you need to get it out of your house, and you need to clean up your habit. Or if it's drugs, or whatever it is, you have to be able to do your part also. So, I mean, it's been a long time coming. Some of these things that people have issues with, they've had them around for a while, and they've kind of gotten comfortable with them. And the thing is when you have a spirit or an attachment, they've got a good thing going, and they're creatures of habit. They become comfortable, and they don't want to give up their spot. If you want to kick them out, they're not happy about that. They want to find a way to still continue to leech off of you. So yeah, definitely reach out to these lovely ladies, and then as they mentioned, that they that they do the demon thing, and I'm so happy, because I will send you people that still send me emails.
Well, the Warren Foundation is a little different. It's not us in particular, but the Warren Foundation is Ed and Lorraine Warren's grandson, actually, Chris McKinnell. He actually founded the Warren Foundation. So he's the one, definitely, but we can absolutely provide you the information for it. We don't deal with the demons ourselves, but because I like my life the way it is.
I agree with also, Cathryn, also that the thing is that you don't want to have just anybody come and do it, because there are a lot of people that will claim that they can do it, and they can. And if anybody's charging you money to come in and clear your house, you need to question that too, unless you're pitching in for their gas or their expenses to get there. Somebody should not be actively charging you to come and clear their house, because, I mean, at least that I don't charge when I mean, to go to people's houses and do that sort of thing, unless I'm having to put in a lot of my own money for traveling expense. But the thing is that, you need to get somebody that knows what they're doing. And I'm telling you right now, people, the sage is not the get all. Okay. If you take sage into a house where there's a demonic presence, it tickles it and pisses it off, and it will come back with even stronger. You have to have something stronger, like dragon's blood, or something that's much, much stronger than that, as well as rituals. And then the sage is always good for neutralizing and the cleanup of what I call the micro metastasis of the leftovers of the negative stuff. But definitely get somebody that knows what they're doing, not somebody that just says they know what they're doing. Yeah. But check them
out. That's why I like the Warren Foundation, because Chris has been doing this for many, many, many years, and the people that he brings onto or into the foundation to help with this have experience. They're all over the world, which is wonderful, right? And work remotely in the whole bit. But I just wanted to say thanks so much for being here with us this week. This has been wonderful.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. I'll be happy to come back. Maybe we can talk about a lighter note in Heaven and Angels as Christmas coming up.
I'd love that.
But definitely, do reach out. If I can't help you, I will at least get you in a direction with somebody that can help you, to the best of my knowledge. And it just, there's hang in there. Definitely hang in there. But thank you so much for having me. Beautiful.
Oh, thank you. And we'll be bringing you back again, hopefully soon. I know we're kind of looking after, after Halloween sometime here, but I'm definitely going to be reaching out to you fairly soon and seeing if you have some free time for us. We'd really appreciate it.
Okay. I would love that. Definitely. I would love that. Just let me know.
Sounds good. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We truly appreciate it. Please make sure that you have clicked like and you are subscribing to the Paranormally Speaking show. If you're watching on the I Want to Believe channel, that channel is going to be closing pretty soon. So make sure all of our information is in the description box as well. So please make sure that you are coming on over. You're clicking like, clicking subscribe, go to our Facebook page, our Instagram page, all of that. And we are actually on Twitch now too. So I'm finally we're getting these things up and going. We're all excited, but thanks everybody. Take care and have an amazing, amazing night.
And don't forget to hit the notification bell. Whoop.
Exactly. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Ring my
notification bell is so important. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.